Today I decided we're going to have a little fun. We're going to go with Mike Cohn on a little journey. We're going to play a game called Two Truths and a Lie about Agile planning. So, there are three statements I'm going to read about Agile. Two are true and one is false. Let's read them together and see if we can spot the lie before it's revealed. Here we go. So, option number one. Agile teams should be willing to change their plan for the sprint if they discover a better way to meet the sprint goal. I'll say it one more time. Agile teams should be willing to change their plan for the sprint if they discover a better way to meet the sprint goal. Now let's go to number two. Number two is estimation in Agile is most useful for helping teams forecast and make trade-offs, not for holding individuals accountable. So I'll read that one again. Estimation in Agile is most useful for helping teams forecast and make trade-offs, not for holding individuals accountable. And then number three, a team that consistently finishes every planned story in every sprint is demonstrating a healthy, predictable, Agile framework. Do you have your pick? I have mine. According to Mike, the lie is number three. That's really interesting because this might be the first time in a long time where I disagree a little bit. So let's see where Mike takes it, and then we'll chime in. So let's keep going. That statement sounds responsible, disciplined, and maybe even a little impressive, which is exactly why it fools people. It reflects a common misunderstanding of Agile. The idea that a good team is one that is always comfortable, always certain, and always exactly on plan. But healthy Agile teams are not defined by perfect adherence to prediction. They are defined by how well they pursue outcomes, adapt what they learn, and make sensible decisions in the presence of uncertainty. Let's pause. So I want to review those sentences that I just now read one at a time and give you my feedback. That statement sounds, so let's reread the statement one more time. A team that consistently finishes every planned story in every sprint is demonstrating a healthy, predictable, Agile process. The first sentence says, that statement sounds responsible, disciplined, and maybe even a little impressive, which is exactly why it fools people. I'm going to argue you're not doing it to fool people. The goal from a leadership perspective is to gain predictability. I would rather see a team do one less story per sprint and become more predictable and finish everything they commit to than constantly carrying things over from one sprint to the next looking like they can't meet their commitments at all. A lot of this is about perception, Mike, and I want to make sure that we're giving leadership the correct perception. Even if we're doing a little less, our goal should still be to focus on outcome and become predictable. Okay, let's see what the next statement says. It says, it's a common misunderstanding of Agile. The idea of a good team is one that's always comfortable, always certain, and always exactly on plan. Let's pause. I never said anything about being certain or always on plan, but I want them to be comfortable and confident. And I think that the only way you'll build confidence is by locking in and helping them become a little more predictable. So I'm almost a fan of the one that you don't like, which is really interesting. Let's go to the third statement. It says, but healthy Agile teams are not defined by perfect adherence to a prediction. That is true. They are defined by how well they pursue outcomes. Also true. Adapt to what they learn. Also true. And make sensible decisions in the presence of uncertainty. I agree with everything you said in that paragraph. I just believe we need to spend a little more time focusing on being empathetic to leaders so that we can, because a lot of this is about perception, and we want to make sure we're given the right perception. Let's take a look at each of the statements, starting with truth number one. Teams should change the plan if they find a better way. A sprint plan should guide the team, but it should not trap them. I agree. At the start of a sprint, the team creates the plan. Let's read that one more time. A sprint plan should guide the team, but it should not trap them. At the start of a sprint, the team creates the best plan it can with information available at that moment. That sounds better. Once the sprint begins, though, the team learns more. A technical approach that seemed promising turns out to be awkward, or a dependency proves easier than expected. A simpler solution emerges as we're going, or a conversation reveals a better way to achieve an intended outcome. When that happens, a good Agile team should be willing to adjust or pivot. The important thing is to preserve the sprint goal rather than every detail of the original plan. The goals provide focus. The selected stories, tasks, and implementation approach are simply the team's current best thinking about how to reach that goal. If the team discovers a better path, they should 100% take it. Changing the plan during a sprint is not a sign of weak discipline. In many cases, it's evidence that the team is paying attention to responding intelligently to what it learns using empirical process control, inspect and adapt, and transparency. Teams get into trouble when they stick to an initial plan, even after new information shows a better way forward. Agile works best when teams stay committed to the goal while remaining flexible about how to achieve it. Good answer, Mike. Let's go to number 2. Number 2 says estimation is most useful for forecasting. Estimation is most helpful when it supports planning and decision making. Teams estimate so they can answer practical questions like, how much work can we really take on? When might a larger effort be completed? If we add this item, what will we need to move? Or are we taking too much uncertainty on at once? Those are all variables, questions, and estimation can certainly help make most of these. Where estimation becomes far less useful is when it's turned into a tool for judging individuals' performance. We should never judge individuals' performance or hold them accountable based on individual velocity. Velocity is a team game. People naturally become more defensive when you start doing that. Estimates get padded, uncertainty gets hidden, conversations become less honest. The numbers may still exist, but they stop helping the team make good decisions. And that's why I prefer to keep estimation focused on decision making. Estimates do not need to be exact to be useful. In fact, I always say this. I want my estimates never to be exact. I want them to be accurate, but not precise. And I say that all the time. Trouble starts when estimates are treated as promises, as measures of effort, or as proof of someone's value. When that happens, people stop estimating honestly, and they get defensive. And it makes sense. They pad their numbers, trust erodes, and used well, estimates can support better planning. Used poorly, they 100% undermine. Food for thought. And of course, the last one, I want to see where he takes this. Finishing every planned story every sprint does not prove health. A team that finishes every planned story in a sprint may look predictable, but if that happens all the time, I would not automatically consider it a sign of health. In fact, I would probably wonder whether the team is planning too conservatively. I guess I could see that. Healthy teams should try to finish what they bring into a sprint. That part matters. But software development includes discovery. Discovery includes uncertainty. A team that occasionally falls short of a sprint is not necessarily doing anything wrong. They may simply be planning honestly rather than selecting only the work to feel safe to complete. When a team finishes everything in a sprint, several less healthy possibilities should be considered. The team may be committing to less than it actually can accomplish. You got to be careful of that. It could be avoiding work with meaningful uncertainty. It may be preserving a perfect record rather than setting an ambitious sprint goal. Or it may be optimizing for never miss instead of optimizing for highest value. None of that means the team should be sloppy in planning. They should not. Teams should take sprint planning seriously and make thoughtful comments. But there's a meaningful difference between planning well and planning so cautiously that success is virtually guaranteed. So, okay, I get what he's saying. What he's saying is don't pad so much that your success is guaranteed, because that's not going to get you anywhere. I agree with that. I do not want 100% sprint success if it is achieved by consistently undercommitting. A team that occasionally leaves a story unfinished may actually be healthier than one that never does. I don't know. It's maybe taking on more work and a more honest, useful level of challenge. Perfect completion rates look impressive, but they can also hide timidity. I don't know, Mike. I'm still having trouble swallowing that because I want my teams to be predictable, and that's how I'm going to continue to coach that way. This is why the third statement is such a good lie. It matches what many organizations instinctively want from Agile, which is absolutely true. They want certainty, consistency, and commitments that are always fully met. But Agile was never about making work look neat. It was about helping teams produce better results in environments where not everything is known in advance. The only problem I have, Mike, is that there's still this level of uncertainty. And I feel like when there's this level of uncertainty and leaders are frustrated and looking for something that they can put their foot on, we need to provide them with a little bit of consistency and a little bit of love. And I almost feel like this just swung the pendulum hard the other way. He concludes with that's why teams should adapt their plans when they learn something important. It's why estimates should be used for forecasting rather than performance evaluation. And it's why a sprint should be judged by whether it has a meaningful goal, not by whether every predicted detail under that said goal is expressed. So a healthy Agile team does not try to create appearance of certainty. It tries to make good decisions with the level of certainty it actually has. And that is a much better standard to hold by. So, Mike, I love you, man. I love your emails every week, but this is one where I drew the line. I don't know that I consider three a lie, and I don't know that I consider it unhealthy. I think it's something we may need to revisit offline. That's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at agiledad.com. Mike, don't stop sending those emails. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.